a Filipina has never been seeded at a Grand Slam tournament. Until now. Alex Eala has just become the first player from the Philippines in history to enter a Grand Slam main draw as a seeded player. In a country where basketball dominates almost every conversation about sport, and where tennis courts and coaching infrastructure remain scarce, this is not a small development. This is a structural shift in what Filipino tennis has ever been able to claim. But here's what makes this story worth your next 10 minutes. Just 1 year ago, Eala walked into this exact same tournament and lost in the very first round. So the question isn't just how she got seeded. It's how she went from a first-round exit to making history in the space of 12 months, and what stands in her way now that she's actually arrived. To understand that jump, you have to go back further. Alexandra Maniego Eala was born on May 23, 2005, in Quezon City, Philippines. Her father, Michael Eala, is a business executive. Her mother, Rosemarie Maniego Eala, was a national swimmer who won a bronze medal in the 100-meter backstroke at the 1985 SEA Games, and later became Chief Financial Officer of Globe Telecom until 2024. So competing at the highest level wasn't a foreign concept in this household, it was the family business, just in a different sport. Eala was winning before most people her age had picked a career path. By October 2020, she was the world's number 2 ranked junior. By 2022, she had become the first Filipino to ever win a major junior title, taking the girls' singles crown at the US Open. On paper, that looks like the start of an unstoppable rise. In reality, it almost never went anywhere, because junior success and professional success are two completely different sports. Most junior number 2s never crack the professional top 100. For years, that statistic looked like it might apply to Eala too. Here's the proof. Eala entered her first Grand Slam in 2023, not in the main draw, but in Australian Open qualifying, the entry-level stage most fans never even watch. Through 2024, she was still grinding on tour, a second-round finish at the Madrid Open, a fourth career ITF title at a smaller event in Vitoria-Gasteiz, Spain, and a string of early-round appearances across tournaments in Abu Dhabi, Wuhan, and Guangzhou that came and went without much notice. Her career-high ranking that year peaked at just number 143. That is not a rising stars ranking. That is a player still searching for the result that changes everything. Then, in 2025, she found it, in a single tournament. At the Miami Open, a WTA 1000 event, Eala entered as a wildcard, the longest of long shots, the kind of entry that usually ends in round 1. Instead, she beat world number 5 Madison Keys. Then she beat world number 2 Iga Swiatek. Back-to-back, against 2 players ranked worlds above her at the time. That result made her the first Filipino to ever reach a WTA 1000 semifinal, and it pushed her into the WTA top 100 for the first time in her career. This is the moment the story actually turns. Not a slow climb, but one tournament that rewrote what was possible for her. She backed it up too, reaching her first tour-level final at Eastbourne and winning her first WTA 125 title in Guadalajara later that year. She ended 2025 at a career-high ranking of number 50, up from number 143 just 12 months earlier. The wins over Keys and Swiatek weren't a lucky night that faded into a highlight reel. They became the first entries in a growing file of proof. Eala now holds a 6-4 win-loss record against top 10 opponents across her career. Then 2026 tested whether the breakthrough was real or a one-off. The season opened rough. A semi-final run in Auckland ended by Wong Sinyu. A first-round exit at the Australian Open in both singles and doubles. A run to the quarterfinals at the Dubai Championships, stopped by Coco Gauff. Her clay season was no kinder, a third-round finish at the Italian Open against Elena Rybakina, followed by early exits at the Linz Open, the Stuttgart Open, the Strasbourg International, and the French Open. For months, it looked like Miami might have been the exception, not the new normal, the kind of season that quietly fades a breakthrough story instead of building on it. And then, just weeks before Wimbledon, the grass turned everything around. Eala won the Birmingham Open, her second WTA 125 title, beating Nikola Bartunkova in the final. She reached the round of 16 at the HSBC Championships at Queen's Club, falling to Iva Jovic, a respectable run, but nothing that hinted at what came next. Then came Berlin, a WTA 500 semifinal run, built on wins over 2 more top 10 opponents in successive rounds. That single result triggered an immediate 5-spot ranking jump, from number 35 to number 30, in the rankings released on June 22, 2026. That is the exact climb that pushed her into Wimbledon's top 32, and into the history books. Here's the headline: Eala enters Wimbledon 2026 as the number 29 seed, the first Filipino ever seeded at a Grand Slam. The seedings sit alongside world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka, Elena Rybakina, and defending champion Iga Swiatek, with a full field of 32 seeded players confirmed in the women's draw. But a seed isn't a free pass, and this is where the real stakes kick in. Being seeded protects a player from the very best opponents, until the third round. After that, there are no more guarantees. Players seeded between 25 and 32, exactly where Eala sits, are guaranteed to run into a top 8 player by round 3. In other words, the seed got her a softer landing for 2 rounds, and then puts her straight in front of one of the best players alive. And there's a more personal stake sitting underneath all of it. Last year, at this same tournament, Eala lost in the first round to Barbara Krejcikova, 3-6, 6-2, 6-1. This year, she isn't just chasing a new milestone. She's trying to prove last year was the exception, not the pattern. The stage is bigger too. This year's Wimbledon prize pool sits at £64, 200,000, a 20% increase from last year, the largest year-on-year jump in the tournament's history. Right before stepping onto Wimbledon's grass, Eala is competing at the Bad Homburg Open in Germany, a WTA 500 event that began on June 21, 2026. In singles, she faces world number 26 Elise Mertens, a rematch after losing to her 6-2, 6-1 earlier this year at the Madrid Open. But the real headline from Bad Homburg is in doubles, where Eala has paired with Venus Williams, a 46-year-old, 7-time Grand Slam champion. Picture that pairing for a second, one of the most decorated players in tennis history, lining up next to the newest seeded star the sport has produced, just days before Wimbledon begins on June 29. There's a layer to this story that has nothing to do with rankings. Tennis is a minority sport in the Philippines, competing for attention in a basketball-obsessed country with limited courts and limited coaching infrastructure compared to nations that have produced Grand Slam champions for decades. That makes Eala's seed more than a tennis statistic. It's a genuine first for Filipino sport at the highest level the game offers, achieved without the kind of national tennis system that usually produces players at this level. Nike has already treated it that way. For her 2025 Wimbledon debut, they gifted her a hair tie shaped like a sampaguita blossom, the national flower of the Philippines. Later that year, they released a limited edition shirt layering that same flower over an illustration of Wimbledon's grass courts. Back home, brand deals have followed, locally Juice in 2025, Milo in February 2026, and comparisons to Manny Pacquiao have started circulating, a sign of how far this story has traveled beyond the tennis world and into the broader conversation about Filipino sport on the international stage. There's a personal side to it too. Eala speaks English, Spanish and Tagalog, has trained alongside Rafael Nadal and her brother Miko, and has named Maria Sharapova as an influence on her game. Of the 4 Grand Slams, Wimbledon is the one she's called her favorite, which makes this particular breakthrough land at exactly the tournament that means the most to her. So here's where it actually stands. A seed has already been earned, that part of history is locked in, no matter what happens next at Wimbledon. What's still unwritten is everything else. Tennis offers no guarantees. A seed can lose in round 1 just as easily as an underdog can run to the second week, and Eala has lived both versions of that truth within the same 12 months. Last year, it was the first round exit. This year, it's a top 30 ranking and a Grand Slam seed. Both of those are real. Both belong to the same player in the same span of time, which is exactly why nobody, not analysts, not fans, not Eala herself, can say with certainty what happens when she walks onto the grass this year. What's certain is only what's already been done. She is the first Filipino in the WTA Top 30. The first with multiple wins over top 10 players and major champions. The first to reach a tour-level final. The first to win a WTA 125 title, twice. And now, the first ever seeded at a Grand Slam tournament. None of those firsts existed anywhere in Philippine tennis history before she built them. One match, one tournament, one ranking jump at a time. Whatever the scoreboard says when this Wimbledon ends, that list of firsts doesn't disappear. It stays attached to her name, and to a country that had never produced a player like this before her.